Iraq was in good shape when we left office, and Barack Obama said as much. What happened basically was they failed to follow through. They withdrew as quickly as possible and left no stay-behind force there. They created a vacuum, and the vacuum was filled by ISIS.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney on CNN today accusing President Obama of being responsible for the rise of ISIS in Iraq. And while the finger-pointing continues over who's to blame for the rise of ISIS, there is one thing President Obama can take full responsibility for: the Iran deal. So far, the president has managed to garner the support of 32 senators, placing him closer to the crucial 34 Senate votes needed to back up the agreement. For more, let's call on our panel. Joining us from Newsmax New York, Ellis Henican. Also joining us from Newsmax Washington, former United States Congressman Michael Patrick Flanagan, who is the president of Flanagan Consulting. Our thanks to you both. And Mike, let me start with you. Can this deal be stopped, or will the president get enough Democrats in line to keep it on track?
I thought a couple of weeks ago the revelation that Iran would do its own checking and policing of its own sites would have been enough to kill it, but apparently not. And the loyalties to the president exceed those of just common sense. And it's looking bad to stop the deal, but you know, there's still a few votes short, and there's still a good chance.
So, Ellis, is it party loyalty, or do you think this is really a good deal?
It's definitely better than the alternative. I mean, what do you want to do? Give up, have the sanctions fall apart, go to war with Iran? If you don't like this deal, JD, I want you to tell me how great the other options are. Most people in Congress, and in fact, a huge number of Americans recognize that it ain't perfect, but it's probably about the best we're going to get. And
it sure is expensive. Michael, what is it, $150 billion or more that the Iranians get access to?
Yeah, I'm sorry, JD. 165 billion is going to be turned loose back to state-sponsored terrorism of Iran. I cannot foresee how there is any result that makes that okay all by itself. Forget them getting the bomb. So I mean, this is a hugely problematic deal. We had a terrible negotiation, and it's a terrible deal. We should either still be talking or treat them harshly with the sanctions.
And the irony is, Ellis, the president insists this agreement is not built on trust but on verification. But we just heard Michael point out the reports we heard a couple of weeks ago that Iran is going to be able to police itself. Are you really comfortable with that?
No, you don't make deals with your friends. You make them with your enemies. You try to make things better. Listen, JD, this is all just a bunch of hot air, though. The deal is going to pass. It's going to become the law. Let's do our best to try and make sure that we get something productive out of it. But any arguments at this point, frankly, are just too little, too late. It's a fait accompli at this point, I would say.
Oh, joy. Well, let's move ahead to something else, and that's politics. For the first time in more than a month, Donald Trump's poll numbers, well, they're tied by another candidate, Dr. Ben Carson. Your take on the rise of Dr. Ben, Michael Flanagan?
It's probably one of the most exciting candidates we've had in 20 years. I saw Dr. Carson speak here in Washington a couple of weeks ago. He's dry and he's soft-spoken, but there's a lot of punch behind that. He is a terrific candidate, a deep thinker, a smart guy, and he's probably one of the most genuine people I've run into in a very long time. The Republican field is rich and deep this cycle, and Carson is one of its leading lights.
Ellis, what has happened in Iowa, that tie between Dr. Ben and the Donald, can Ben translate that into nationwide popularity and keep this kind of high poll ranking?
Run him. Make him the nominee. I think he'd be a great candidate. So listen, JD, right now all across America, game show hosts, professional wrestlers, probably a couple of taxi drivers are thinking, darn, I wish I had run for president this year. Clearly, it is a year in which Republican voters, and maybe some Dems too, are sick to death of politicians. And so you'll notice right at the top of that poll in Iowa, you got Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina's coming up right behind, and of the politicians, the one who's doing surprisingly well is Ted Cruz, who is the least politician-y of the politicians of the thing. So the message to me is politicians go away.
One more item before we go. Last night, the U.S. Supreme Court denied an emergency application from County Clerk Kim Davis in Kentucky. She's been refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples because of her religious objections. Lawyers argue that she violated a definite and specific order. Should she be forced to comply? 15 seconds to you both. Let's begin with Michael Flanagan.
What she should do is resign and protest. She has a job. The job now requires certain things of her that she cannot do and comply with her religious scruples. Her job is not to pervert her position in life, but her job is to resign in protest and make noise about that. That's her task.
Ellis, do you agree? 10 seconds.
Absolutely, 100% right, Michael. If you can't do the job, clerk requires you to follow the law. Get out of there and let someone do it who can.
And on that note of unanimity, our thanks to Ellis Henican and Michael Flanagan, and we'll be back.